Hello and welcome. Here we are once more for World Building on Wednesday. And of course, as always, I am your host, Casimira Basilius, Lord of the Empire, well, a Lord in the Empire, here to, well, bring information on the world of Galactic Requiem. Of course, from an Imperial perspective, but, So, of course, first we'll cover a little bit of sort of things we need to cover before we'll get right into it and not ramble for too long. So we'll quickly cover those things, such as, of course, World Building Wednesdays are still here on Wednesday. Solo Sunday is being moved to Friday, and Miscellaneous Friday is now Sunday. So we'll play games on Sunday and run the Tabletop RPG or TTRPG on Friday because of scheduling and all that. But hopefully now we'll be more focused on doing the things that we're supposed to do on the right days and so forth, and less rambling and all that. Except for on Fridays, of course, which is now Sunday. It's all confusing, I'm sure. Anyway, today is World Building Wednesday, so we'll build worlds. Let's head on over. Well, today we'll begin doing something a bit different than building worlds. Well, sort of. I'm rambling. Let's go over there and begin work. Here we are. So, today we are preparing for Friday, which is when we're going to run the solo game, to have a little bit more order in things, a bit of guidance for the bot, if you will. And, well, that's our plan. Still going to have it random and the like, but a bit more guidance to get the plot kicking along. And then, of course, we can be more random with the bot and so forth as we go, but we're going to give it a little bit of guidance in a bit of an encounter for fun. So this isn't, we are working on the campaign, but as this is World Building Wednesday, we will throw in a little world building, section to it. And so today we'll be covering a little bit of encounter design, which we haven't really covered, even in our previous things. Well, we've covered it a little bit, but not entirely. And we won't cover it entirely here because it is going to be somewhat random, but we'll cover some basics of encounter design along with world building. So today's world building is going to be a little bit less world building focused and more encounter design focused, but we will do a bit of world building. I mean, So that is far, far more than enough rambling. Let's get right actually to the work. So, well, the mercenary we follow around, Juliana Aldous, is on a mission, etc., etc. We've been over it quite a lot. I probably say this every single time, so we'll skip over it this time and just get right to it. She's in a zoo, an old abandoned zoo that was run by a gang. What we know is that there are a bunch of dead gangsters, in this room in particular, killed by plasma weaponry, likely from government forces. We know that we were supposed to pick up a target that the government is after from here. Unfortunately, it looks like they got there before us. Our allied gangsters, different gangster faction, left without us after seeing the dead bodies of the other gang. So basically, what we need to do is design basically how we're going to go from here. And we're going to make it a little bit more structured, but not solve anything, of course, and we're going to make it a little bit random, which involves quite a bit of work, but that's what we're here for. So if I can find our sheet here, good, we have it prepared. Well, what we should do is head to the bottom of the sheet. So we can work on random charts like this and the like, which we will need for encounter design. Of course, the bit of complexity in this is that we are designing an encounter, but we are designing an encounter that is designed, well, that is meant to be random. Because we're not supposed to know the entire information on it. So we've sort of done this before with our random chart of gangster encounters that we expected to find here. So here's what we're going to do. What I'm thinking, plan-wise, is our party is going to... We're not far behind. Given the fact that we're underground, it is likely that the government forces either took the gangsters, not the gangsters, the target, out from one of the floors or out from the surface. We know this is likely, I mean, those are the ways. It is under my best assumption that they likely went through the roof, upwards, down, so they could have a way out via air instead of having to go through all sorts of gang territory and the like. That is our assumption. We also know that, well, what is our party going to do? It's not like we can track anybody anyway, so our goals are basically just going to be to get out of here, regroup, and figure out where to go from here. That is going to be our party's goal. In order to do that, we need to get out of the territory without a vehicle. So the idea for this encounter is going to be, basically, let's make sure, let's see here. Yes, the idea for this encounter is going to be that the gang that we were supposed to meet is likely now hostile with us. Our party is going to try and get out of here, via district and the like, without getting killed. And the enemy gang is, of course, going to try and stop us because, in their view, they likely view our party as having something to do with this. Maybe. Not entirely sure. But things went south for them. They probably want revenge. They want to kill pretty much anybody involved at this point, more than likely. So they'll likely try and stop us. Even if not from an overarching view, from a local view, they'll likely try and stop us. So that's going to be our encounters, meaning we're not going to need to create a new set of information here, as we have a good set of the base gangsters and what equipment they'll have with them. Of course, they might have some vehicles, and we are probably going to have to try and find a vehicle. So we're going to probably, we're just spitballing ideas here, we might have a vehicle combat involved in this, likely ground vehicle combat, given that we're underground. We'll see where that leads us, that is, if we can get a vehicle. If not, the enemies will likely have vehicles, so it's not ideal for us. So our goal for this next session coming up is going to be to basically return to base through enemy territory. So we have the stats for that. We have a few ideas. We can throw in a few curveballs, such as a few enemy emplacements, roadblocks, or heavy weapons. Let us add that to here. Ideas. The enemy might have roadblocks, emplacements, or heavy weapons, or all of the above. Enemies will also have vehicles, but we'll note that as a certainty. They will have vehicles. They'll basically be chasing us out of the area, is the plan. So, overall idea, assuming I should probably zoom in more than that if we're at 0.6 font, you know? Anyway, overall ideas, escape the gang territory while being hunted. That is the overall idea of our encounter. We know the enemy will have vehicles involved. We might. The enemy will probably try and set up roadblocks. They might have a few heavy weapons, emplacements. We'll see where it goes from there. We know for a fact that the enemies will have no air of any kind. Oh. Sorry about that. Hit the wrong button there. There we go. We are underground, so the gang will have no air assets to deploy against us here. We know that as another fact of the encounter. What else? A more vague idea. Vehicle chase. Vehicle combat, of course. We don't want to... So what we're doing here is basically we're giving vague, sort of solid facts, but vague encounter ideas to give to the bot, basically. We're going to try and incorporate them if they come up within the encounter while still not being sure of them. So when we have vehicle chase, we're not going to be like the enemy have this many vehicles, etc., etc. We're going to leave a lot of it up to the bot as to what occurs. But we will try and hit some of these points as we go to see how it all works. We also probably need a map. Probably. It's not like it's a necessary thing, but it might be useful. So we don't want to give the enemy too many assets, so we'll let the bot decide the amounts, but we'll overall go with feel. It's hard to explain. We'll go with feel about how many encounters to throw in there. We are simulating a world, of course, but we're also running a game, so it's, So, of course, the bot, and we're also not running it ourselves entirely. So, basically, we'll let the bot decide strength of encounters for the most part. Let's see here. So, one moment, my apologies. Here we are. So, as I was saying, basically, we're going to leave a lot of it up to the bot, because, let me put it this way. The way we run Galactic Requiem, often. I mean, it depends on how we're running it, to be fair. There's multiple ways to run a game, but like I always say, we simulate a universe. I know, basically, for a fact, the rough level to expect from these gangsters, which is 1 to 6. Perhaps higher for more skilled individuals and the like, but your average lower levels are up to 4, maybe a little bit higher, and your higher levels are like 6 to 10 or something. I'd have to double check my charts, but that's the range of levels we're looking at for these individuals level-wise. We're going to go with the standard 4 because it's the standard and we're level 4. And it's not like we need to worry about vehicle stats because we've been at this working on Galactic Requiem for a long time. I say we, I mean we here at the industries that work on Galactic Requiem. So we have systems in place already that have all the stats of vehicles and all that, and we have a system for randomly determining increases and decreases in vehicles, statistics, and the like to basically generate copious amounts of random models of vehicles because the galaxy is a big place. And of course, there are so many companies producing vehicles and all that. I mean, just look at your Elysia or your old Elysia, which I believe you Elysians call Earth. Think of how many vehicles there are with different vehicle statistics, different engine horsepowers and speeds and different materials they're made of and all that, and the different companies that make them, and that's one planet. So, of course, given that there's galaxies out there, there's a galaxy out there full of civilizations and the like, of course, there's so many different corporations and organizations and variants that we basically we have generic templates, of course, and then we have this way to roll, basically, and determine if certain parts of a statistic block are increased or decreased. And then what we do is we actually solidify it. So basically, anytime we get a variant, we can generate random variants, but anytime we get a variant, we actually note that in the law. Anytime we generate a new variant, we note that in the law. And it's a lot of, so there's multiple tiers of noting things in the law. So basically, what we will do is we'll go, let me bring up my sheet. Unfortunately, I can't bring it up in here in front of us, mostly because I just don't have it set up. Here we are. So every object, every item in game has essentially a string of numbers and letters that dictate its variant. Sometimes you can get two similar or the exact same variants of weapons or items that are from different nations, and we do note them as different nations. When this happens, what we'll do is we'll have, sorry, I minimized the file there. What we'll do is we'll have basically a chain afterwards. For instance, if we're talking about some unimportant nation that we're going to work on later, let's say we're talking about some minor nation, because that's how we classify it. Let's say we're talking about some minor nation, and they have I'm still scrolling through my files, so here we are. I have it somewhere. So if we have a minor nation and they have a item, we basically list, if we don't have information on that minor nation, we basically have MN, minor nation, dash, and a chain of letters and numbers and so forth that indicate where what they are, and or a locational designator of where they are galaxy-wise using the coordinate system. And that basically indicates that this weapon's produced there. Then usually we'll add a model at the end or a type. So, for example, here we are. Here's one that's not from a minor nation. First, targets limited TL-DAR-38 38-6S2 little comma, I believe that is 30, which is a type targets limited 38 double action revolver. Or, for instance, for a minor nation, we have minor nation MN-926, minor nation 926, 9mm double action autoloader pistol, model 28-P. Basically indicating that it is this minor nation's model 27 pistol, double action autoloader pistol, and so forth. Basically allowing us to have things like that. But technically, multiple minor nations could have guns that are of the same statistics, but we still indicate that they're from different nations. You don't have to, but we do, because fun. Strangely enough, I've found that players sometimes some players like that kind of thing. They care that their weapons are from a place, even if they have statistics from somewhere else. Like, what I mean by statistics from somewhere else, I mean same statistics. Two weapons with same statistics, but one's from one place, players will prefer that, even if it's basically the exact same statistic-wise. But given our variance system, they're not always the exact same statistics-wise. There's just more producers of weapons than there are statistical variants. I mean, the galaxy's large. There's only so much variance in the statistics you can possibly have. But that's not to say there's not a lot of variance in the weapons. There can be a lot, but just there's more manufacturers than there are. There's also generic template items and all that. And basically, it's not really important, but basically the entire point is we can basically randomly generate stats or differences in stats for items. So it's not like we need to bring up a full prepared stat block for these things. Basically, what we can do, is well, I'll just open this book here, scroll over to cars, trucks, and standard land vehicles. We can determine, this could be determined randomly, however we want to determine it. We could pre-decide or add it to a list or whatever. The gangsters are using the most generic of cars. So we'll use a standard four-door, four-wheeled, standard model car. So we'll have a generic template dash model 1 dash M1 GT dash M1, a mid-size car. And so we have all the stats for that pre-prepared. And for variant's sake, we can basically go to a different chart. I'm not going to bother opening it right now, but we can go to another chart, look at the thing, roll on that chart and be like, okay, so we're going to be editing the AC value, which is what I've rolled here, of that vehicle. This specific variant has slight armoring. It's slightly stronger in its AC than another vehicle by a middling degree. So by middling degree, its AC is increased by basically 2. So it has 2 more AC than a standard model of GT-M1. Then, of course, if we cared, we could go in and make a separate model designator for it. And if we really cared, which sometimes we do, we could go in and, fill out as much information as we need. This model of vehicle was designed by this corporation, and it is made of in their design, they found that making it out of a sturdier material and so forth and et cetera, for the lore behind it and all that. And that is world building right there. Of course, we're not using that, or I'm not going through the entire process of making a random edited statistic car, which is a rather quick process, like I said, but I would have to bring up a sheet and make notes, which I haven't done here. So, but basically, you can go as in depth as you want in these designs. I find that you can go as in depth as you want when world building this kind of thing. You can go as in depth as you want, but you don't need to. Unless it's relatively important, you don't need to. But you can. Like, it really depends on how you want to go about it. If you want to get some ideas and so forth, go in depth. Figure out why the corporation made these differences to their product, why it's this way, who's the market for this upgraded defense car. It's not a major upgrade, it's still within civilian standards, so it's maybe they're making it out of just slightly stronger material and so forth, or maybe it's more agile, however you want to go about it, and basically add to the information of it. And why they do it, is all their product line like this? Or is it just this model? Do they make different variants as much as you want in depth of it? And maybe that it's a product of a corporation you already have in-game, and so you can tie it to them however you want to go about it. But I find that for simple things, the most simple things, roughly a paragraph. You don't even need a paragraph. You don't need the lore on it. You can just have it as an item. You don't need to go in depth. Just put for me, I'll put at minimum a designator so I know where it was produced. And that is a different model from the other models. That's the minimum I'll do. But I find that a paragraph is usually good enough. A paragraph about this item or thing. Of course, if it's something I'm tying into something, or it's part of a plot, or it's relevant, I will go in more depth. But a paragraph is usually enough to read off to your players, or if you have a paragraph, you can have little sections of the paragraph, or little bits of it that your players might know. So even if you have a paragraph, do I know anything about this model? Make a cultures this nation check. Well, this area of space and so forth. Okay, 11 plus my thing. Okay, with that, you're able to determine that this manufactured car, just by looking at it, you've heard of this. You've heard of this company before and heard of this model of car. Its speed is slightly better than what you would expect from these other cars. And if they roll higher, you could give them little bits of information. Just, world building given to your players by what they know about this paragraph. I mean, of course, if you wanted, you could just read out the paragraph, but I would probably never do that. Don't read out the paragraph to your player. You can, I suppose, but unless your player is asking, or for me making a check, or whether they would know about it without making a check, which they might, basically, you can have them make a check on it, or if the characters want to look it up, they can look it up. And we encourage this by, technically, when in Galactic Requiem, when we award experience and the like, we award experience for basically everything. There is a little section of experience that is for players to decide, and a little section of experience for the GM to decide, that we award. Basically, there's also the encounter difficulty and all that. That is, did the players, basically every task. Exploring gives you experience. Interacting with other characters gives you experience. Any kind of encounter gives you experience. But these little bonuses, like, did the players interact with the world? Did they RP? Did they play their characters, etc.? If they interacted with the world. They're looking up details about this vehicle. That's XP right there. That is XP right there. Basically allowing your, encouraging this exploration of the world and encouraging your players to care about this stuff and so forth. Without having to, you're not forcing them to, of course, but if they want to look it up, there's a little reward for it and so forth, for interacting with the world and encouraging more than just, I mean, of course, like I said, everything gives XP, but encouraging more than just combat and all that. This is a tabletop RPG. Interacting with the world in any way is XP granting, and we encourage interacting with the world. I mean, I'm not sure if we had it here so far, but our character, Juliana Aldis, that we follow around, the mercenary here, we've gone several times. I think it was in previous things before before the archive stuff. Several times she's had to travel places. And whenever she travels, she gets a book, just a random novel, and we've gone over just the travel between destinations and so forth, which we'll get more into. I mean, currently we're in a bit of a mission, but we'll get more back into that stuff. But basically, just interacting with the world. And, I find that to be an enjoyable part of tabletop RPGs. The RPG, role-playing game. Play the role as a character in the world. And all that. Of course, there is combat, which it's not bad to like combat and all that. Some players prefer kicking down doors, shooting the enemies and all that, and the tactical aspects of all that. And that's perfectly fine too. All of it is. It's a world, and if players want a mercenary campaign, sure. If they want to be in the space military, sure. If they want to be on a medieval world, sure. An apocalypse world, sure. Wherever they want to be, however they want to interact. The world is there to be interacted with. And as long as they're having fun. Anyway. So, one thing we do need to do. Let me see. City Retrieval Underground. This is the map we're looking for. But I don't think we have a variant that we're looking for. We don't, so here's what we're going to do. Going over to here. Nope, wrong one. Finding the right file, of course. This one. Make a copy of this map. We're going to name this City Underground Overview. And this will be an overview map, basically. Of the underground sections. So we can have a large scale moving from point A to point B. And of course, if we need an encounter, we can quite rapidly generate an encounter map. And that is, well, we'll just, if we ever need to generate an encounter map, what we'll basically do is we'll grab one of these. We'll prepare one. There's no need not to prepare one. Go to background. No, we won't prepare one, because I don't want it on the same map. We'll make it on a random encounter map. Because I want this map to be clean, basically. So, basically what we'll do is we'll take one of these, make a square, and drop some things to represent roads and such into it when we need to. But in the overview aspect, we're going to make a map to basically flee on for our encounters and the like. Of course, we could do it randomly as we go and the like, but we won't. Okay, so we have one map. We have one road all the way across there and one road all the way across the bottom. Sorry, I'm doing measurements right now to try and figure out scale. There we are. We'll place this here. That will be where our encounter is. Scale-wise, we'll actually do this. I mean, it's already going to be inaccurate, I assure you. I mean, like, distances and the like will be inaccurate, but I just like being as accurate as possible in my maps. There we are. So the reason I have to do this is because I know that one of those maps that we saw here, this is on a ground scale 500 meters, and I know that on this scale this is 1 kilometer, so I needed a separate thing there. Okay. So now what we do is we will grab this and this. Here we are. So that is... No, that's not right. Almost messed it up. There we go. I have to do a little bit of cheating there. Basically moving the road away. There we are. Let's see. We know that there's a road here. I need to know the distance. 250 to 300. 250 to 300. Okay. 50, 150, 250. We'll go 250 because it lines up with the thing. Probably. Possibly. Maybe not. But that's the distance we're going for. So that should, if I've done my measurements right, roughly align to the zoo. Which is basically all we needed that for. From there, we just literally map out the part of the city we're trying to get to. Well, we also need the section we're trying to get to. Which we'll say is just off the map, because that will make life easier. The reason I say that is because this should be its own map of a part of its own section of the city. So we don't want them combined, technically. So, here we are. Basically, this means we will be heading 5 kilometers through, well, Enemy gain control territory. We'll say the territory ends, not entirely, but basically we'll be heading over here somewhere, which we will place a marker to represent. That is our destination we're trying to get to. Roughly somewhere over there. Now we just need to design the city, which is easier said than done. We can always design parts of it as we go on, the session. We can always design it as we go, but we'll do some work on it. We know that we are in a residential/commercial district, not heavily industrial or anything. So let us represent that to a degree. Most roads are double, so we'll go like so. And we'll just add some of these as we work. Here we are. I'm not sure what route we'll take to our destination, so we'll just, throw some structures down, see how it all works. Hopefully things work well. I know we're leaving from up here. That much I should know for a fact. Okay. So we know we can raise that by a square, because this would be the top of the zoo. No. Messed up. There should be nothing there. Well, there should be things there, but there shouldn't be, well, it's complicated. We don't know what's here, but we know that it's likely stores or something. Not sure. Doesn't matter, so I guess we could place things there, but there shouldn't be a road there. So there shouldn't be a road there. Okay. But like so, we extend the city. Of course, if we wanted more custom stuff, we could do all sorts. It's just basically building blocks. We could do whatever we want to make it custom. We could even be insane and do that. We never will do that, but we could do that. And, so we'll make this easy and just use building blocks to a degree. There's one thing we will do, and that is make a slightly larger arcology type block. Of course, given the way we're doing this, I've specifically made sure that this is roughly scaled, that we could, theoretically, if we ever wanted, draw paths for like curvy roads and all that. We could also do that with images, but, it's really however you want to go about it. Good, it is the right scale. Now we'll just grab the base one. And place one of these. Why not? But yeah, this would be, at this scale, basically, this would be 5 kilometers of city. Or 5 by 5, of course. And any higher scale, we of course use different scaled maps and all. Let's see. So, basically, the city layout, I mean, it's debatable as to whether we want to actually work on it. Of course, I'd find it fine, but it's not like it's too important, and it would just be a lot of this. But I mean, we'll do a little bit of it, I suppose. Something's wrong. Something is wrong measurement-wise. I have noticed an error. We're going to fix it. So basically, here's what we'll do. We'll grab a small empty block, like so. Let's grab this building, because why not? Okay. Of course, we don't need to literally fill the block with things. As you can see with these, you can have buildings of different scales and the like. But the problem we face is that I've gotten one scale wrong. So what we'll do is that. Perfect. I suppose we should also measure the other direction. We're likely going to move all these and use them for other purposes. Okay, yes, that's off too. As much as it looks like that's the edge, it should be 2 over for reasons. I've covered all those reasons before, but they are just very much the unfortunate way we've set up maps. There we are. That means this should. And we've done it wrong again. It should be one more. There we go. That should be perfect because now it should, if that is there, line up like 2 over. Perfect. So we're going to have an entire underground city area that heads over there. Of course, despite this being an arcology block, it is likely multiple stories being separate levels, basically. We could work heavily on the road as opposed to the what's the word I'm looking for? We could work heavily on the roads as opposed to caring about what buildings go in them at first. To basically just get a framework, because it's more important that we have a way to our destination than being fancy in what buildings go where and all that. So let's do that. There we are. So basically just take a lot of these and start scattering them to make roads. Hopefully not misclicking like that. There we go. So one of those would have to be there. But we can do fancy things. Just because we're doing this in a certain way doesn't mean we can't be fancy. And do something along the lines of this. Like so. And have a more fancy road section. And I suppose we'll just, instead of deleting those, we'll just reuse those to fix that bit there. We, of course, will be leaving from up here, so we do need to do a bit of work in this section up here. Like so. I messed up. We'll make a backup one of those there. And back up one of these here, which we shouldn't drag over to here. We should just copy from them. Like so. As we build our roadway towards our destination. Oh, and try not to mess up. And as you can see, like, doing this, you get interesting shapes and roads, and you can do it in a variety of different ways. It doesn't need to be, like, a lot of ways. Like, there's lots of ways to go about this. For instance, what if we went a little bit crazy and just kind of went something like that? Of course, we'll need one of these for there. We will need a small road there. Sure. So we have a weird sort of section here, like an upside down T. There we are. And just basically sort of making a city. Like I said, there are ways using drawing. I'll give a rough example. Where we could, if we really wanted, make curvy roads. Of course, if we really wanted, we could be even fancier. And use textures and the like to make roads to scale, or however you want, basically at this scale. Of course, you do lose a bit of detail and accuracy in mapping at this scale, which I think I've been over before. You lose a little bit of detail and accuracy the way I do it, but it more than makes up for it by having the rough, close enough accuracy areas of a city that you can expand and make into large-scale maps and the like, if you need to, while still representing a city you can travel through. Also useful for mass combat scale encounters and the like. Assuming you plan accordingly. Like up here, here's what we're going to do. Let's take one of these. And basically make a long section there like that. Why not? So we're basically just making an interesting way to our target. And this is just a lot of what it is. I mean, admittedly, I switched to roads to make it quicker, and we are doing it quicker with roads, rather than also trying to fill out the buildings right now, but it is a slow process, which is why I'm semi-reluctant to do it on here, but I mean, I suppose we just work. I mean, we just work on things. Why not? But basically, so we know we're going to be encountering a bunch of gang units and the like. Let's see, did we have an overview? We did. It's not this one, though. It's this one. Very good. So we'll just zoom in here. and just grab some scaled gang units, because we're probably going to need a few when we actually run the encounter. Also got to make sure that their states are cleared. Perfect. So we also need vehicle tokens to represent vehicles they may have. Let's see if I can't find a quick few. There. There. Do we have a truck, perhaps? That will do. Let's have a little bit of fun and throw in some bikes. There we go. We'll add a, oh, accidentally background layer, change to token layer. Halo red so they're visible. And I believe they should be one scale down. Or more, but like this is just a rough representation. It's of course not to accurate scale. One other thing I have to do is make sure that the tokens are top down. So when we turn them, they literally turn. There we go. There. Oh, that's also on the background layer. There we go. Basically allowing us to represent things on the chase scale. From here, so basically that's going to be our encounter. Our goal is going to be from getting to here, well, from here, down to there. And that's going to be basically the goal for our session. We'll see where the bot takes us and what it throws at us, and how it all works out. Of course, when designing a city like this, let's get into a little bit of world building. When designing a city like this, one of the ways to go about it is, well, districts. Industrial, commercial, residential, heavy residential, light residential, heavy industrial, light resident, light industrial, etc., etc. Much like those old city building games, for a good way to design cities and the like. I mean, and of course, designing them, placing things, and from there, if you're working on a actual like map for your players, like it doesn't always have to be city. You could do wilderness at this scale too. You can do anything at this scale, really. It's just a scale of viewing the world, 50-foot squares and the like. But if you're working on a city, you could have little, depending on how you run, notes on what each thing is, different groups, territories. Using the drawing tools, you could just be using the drawing tools and layers or personal maps or however you want to go about it. You could have markers indicating like territories, however accurately you want to go about it. And like you can have territories, and at least with map tools or however you run it, you could have notes on different things. Of course, this note will be visible to you probably because I put it on the GM section, and as the person hosting the server, I can have it there. But see, in the bottom left, you can have notes, or if you have a system for making notes, if using paper and the like, you can have notes about who owns each building, little bits of lore, and you can have people interact with them, all sorts of things. It's just a scale to view the world at, and basically mapping. Of course, there are larger scales in world maps. Did I import those? Unfortunately, I don't think I imported the map types here. Unfortunate. But of course, there are other scales like world scale and so forth for making maps. Let's see. So, let us work some more on actually getting this prepared. Place that there. Copy one of these. Throw a wrench in everything by placing 2 of those. And one of those there. There we are. Of course, we could do this far more generic and easy, but a bit of confusion in how it works makes it more entertaining in a chase and escape kind of thing. Of course, also the enemy will be blocking roads and the like for added fun, as we put in our notes. That roadblocks and the like. But we do want to have that sort of chase kind of action feel to this. Turning corners, fighting people in their vehicles from our vehicle, and all that. Hmm. We'll have 2 more of these. And these ones, we will remove that. Why not? Of course, if you prefer, we could have a far more orderly city and the like, but that removes a bit of options and all that if it is 100% basically a grid. And in fact, we'll do something a little crazy and do that up here. What any of these are, not sure yet. Like I said, we're just filling out the road, not the interiors of those roads. I think we're going to do another one of those blocks over here. Like that. And we're not going to have one here, though. That will be pure small squares. Like so. In fact, this entire section also, there is absolutely no rhyme or reason to this. I'm just placing blocks in a way that just feels, I don't know, city-like, I suppose. I'm not really thinking about it, other than in the most loose of senses. Like I'm thinking we have a sort of little area that splits, and then there's another sort of series of these over here. And right there, take one of these large ones, have it sort of there. Why? No clue. but a sort of gridded, sort of maybe more residential section like that, maybe more commercial. Not sure, but just something fun like that. And that gets us closer to our destination. I don't know, however, what path we're going to take to get there. And as I said, we can work more on this on the day because this is rather simple of a thing to do. It's not like it's... I always say we can map on the fly, and we can. It's just we never get around to it, honestly. I kind of want... It's sort of like that. Then we'll take one of these. Ooh. No, that would be... we really just want one in the opposite direction? Yeah. Yeah, we do. Like I said, of course we could do this with different shapes and types. If you really wanted and wanted to have a difficult time doing all this, which we generally don't want, but if you wanted, looking for the thing here, it's not going to look the best because of how we're going about this. But if we really wanted, we could basically even do, nope, assuming I click the right buttons, you could even have like a roundabout or basically however you want. Of course, if we did that, we'd have to have a way to connect them, which isn't too hard to do, and there's lots of ways to go about this. That's my entire point. You can make it as complex or non-complex as you want. And, yeah. So, we have a small set of vehicles for our enemies. We have our enemy token. We're going to need a way to represent the player group. Well, our character and their two mercenary allies. We'll probably have to steal a vehicle, but we'll place that as we need it. But what we do need is we'll just grab that to represent our player party unless we split up. Make sure that it's on the token layer. Add a halo of cyan to it. There we go. So we have a way to represent where we are in the city as we go. And of course, like I said, we'll expand it more as we go about it. And we have the beginnings of our series of encounters here. A rough idea, a guide of what we're going to do, and a sort of fun combat encounter to go with it. Here we are. I'm thinking of what we'll need in total. So next session is literally just going to be driving through the city in a sort of chase thing, sort of escape. It will be somewhat randomly generated. I think we will, however, fix that so it's more like so. And we'll place one of those there. No. Anyway, I think we will... I'm thinking if we have everything we need. We have the idea for the encounter, we have the series of things. We'll call it a bit early. We'll call it here, and next Friday we'll play the game. And then on Solo Sunday, we'll play a video game. So on this Friday, we'll run the Solo Tabletop RPG. Friday, we'll play Endless Sky. No. I'm so used to Miscellaneous Friday being video game day that I'm getting them mixed up. This Friday, we run the game. This Sunday, we play Endless Sky for a while, the new campaign of that. And then we'll do more focused world building on next Worldbuilding Wednesday. Then we'll play the game and so forth and repeat. And we're working on our lore series and our news series still constantly, so we'll get that out eventually. Thank you all for stopping by. I'm going to go have some coffee. Hopefully iced, but unlikely. I'm not a fan of iced coffee, but the weather here is terrible. Our climate control system is broken. Starships and all that, you know? When you leave the maintenance to conscripts. Anyway, thank you all for stopping by. I'll see you all next time. And once again, my apologies for a rather shorter session, but I'm not sure what we'd cover other than me sitting here working on the city map some, which I don't think's too entertaining. Maybe we might have a thing of that sometime. I just don't think it's too entertaining for me to sit here figuring out how to go about that. So, you know, maybe someday we'll do that. Just a absolutely chill working on maps. Anyway, thank you all for stopping by. We'll focus more on world building next Worldbuilding Wednesday. This one was more so, as I stated last time, preparation for the solo game so we have a direction to take it. We'll try and do things longer to our usual amount of time in the future. Thank you for stopping by. Have a good day.